I'm Rob Kellogg, and today we're going to talk about types of fire extinguishers and how they actually are utilized, and some practices on how to implement those in a real scenario. So without further ado, let's understand what kind of fire extinguishers potentially could be out there that you might see and what they look like. This is a Class A. You probably won't see these anymore. For whatever reason, they weren't taken out of service and they still hang around somewhere. These are something that you really don't want to work with. So if it's just a Class A itself, please get it replaced with a proper ABC extinguisher that's out there. So second, we're talking about carbon dioxide. And this is actually something that you breathe out on an exhale that your body no longer utilizes. It's the waste product, so to speak, from your living and existing. But when you contain this within this bottle and you extinguish it, it actually suffocates the fire. It prevents oxygen from making contact with that ignition source and that fuel system. So basically it displaces oxygen. Be very careful with this. If you do run across this, some of the hazards that you need to understand while using it, yes, there are hazards in using it, is if you're in an enclosed space, like a room with the doors closed and the windows closed, and that CO2 cannot escape, it'll fill up the room like a bathtub of gas. You won't really see it, and by the time it gets to your breathe zone, it's too late. It'll suffocate you, so be very aware of that. Also the discharge when it comes out of the horn, the black end right here, as it comes out. This portion of the horn is hard plastic, and then the handle here is actually rubberized, and that's for two reasons. One, it's going to produce a frost that's going to work its way from the end of the nozzle back towards the handle, and that is going to cause you some damage. It's like frostbite. If your handle's on there, you're actually going to get frozen to it, stuck. Like if you take your tongue and you stick it to a frozen pole in the middle of winter, that kind of effect. So if you got any sweat on your hands will literally stick to that plastic, so that could cause some damage to your tissues. But other than that, we need to understand that the discharge of CO2 produces an electrical static charge. So that energy that's at the end will actually flow back through the water molecules crystallized during the cooling process, and if your hand is not on a rubberized system, you can actually get an electrical shock. And I personally have experienced that, so please don't do that. Through accidental measures, it happens. So if you use fire extinguishers enough in certain circumstances, you better be very aware of what you're dealing with before you utilize it. So we want to make sure this is a Class B and C rated extinguisher. This is not an A extinguisher, although it can be utilized in certain circumstances. So if you have a trash can that's on fire and you hit this with the CO2 stays in the trash can because it's much heavier than air, then you don't have to worry about it. It'll put the trash can fire out. But if it's an open flame, as soon as the CO2 wafts away, if the material is still hot enough, it can actually reignite. So be very mindful of that. Your multipurpose dry chemicals, very common, your ABC extinguishers. This is just a powder that actually can extinguish a flame, and it's non-conductive, so you can use it in an electrical environment. Be very careful with this around your B-class fires, because if you put the powder on top, the gases coming through from the fuel underneath, if it's hot enough, it'll actually reignite. So this is a good way to knock down the flames before you put down a layer of light water, what we call foam. AFFF is another term that you might hear out there, but this is for firefighting environments. So that this is a good way to knock it down and keep it under control until it gets cool enough to where it will not self-combust. Now you get into the old systems, halon, which is good for B and C class fires. Again, this is for electronics. There's still systems that are out there. They're utilized still in the world. We just don't make any more of it. So in 1994, they quit manufacturing that worldwide. There was a worldwide ban. We now have FM 200 systems, which replace halon. So, and they do the same thing. The hazards in this are pressurized if you're in a bank system. Not so much your handheld stuff, but if you're in a room that has a bank system that floods, the pressurization of that material could come out and cause physical damage to your tissues if you get too close. So it's almost like a nozzle kind of thing. Then you get into your combustible metals, Class D. It's mainly going to be potassium powder in here, but you can get some that are copper-based. And what they do is there's a pressurization mechanism. CO2 bottle sits right here. As soon as you hit that plunger, it actually pressurizes the container from the top down, so the powder is pushed down through the nozzle and then dispensed through the hand trigger. This will shoot large distances depending on the size of the system and how much pressurization is in there. It can go tens of feet. We're talking, I've shot 30 feet away and knocked down fires from that distance. It's very powerful stuff. Under certain conditions, you have high winds, obviously it's going to be much less. So these are all conditions that you need to take into consideration. So don't shoot anybody with this stuff because it will hurt. There's a lot of pressure coming out of there. But it is manufactured mainly for your Class D fires. But we have been able to knock down B class fires and then go back in and use the light water foam on top of it to keep that reflash condition from happening. Very effective fire extinguishing agent and lasts a good deal of time. Then you get into your K fires. Again, we might find these in kitchens. So if you're doing any remodeling in a restaurant that has food product and they have a grease-based product, they are required to have the K systems, whether it's the bank system that sits above the fryers or you have these on the wall, which are handheld. They do the same thing for K fires. I wouldn't use them without experience and knowledge. I wouldn't use them on any liquid or electrical material. So please do not use them on electricity. These are for your greases and your greases only. Your ABCs are for your electrical fires. And then really what does fire extinguishing happen? Water is a cooling agent. Carbon dioxide is utilized to smother it, as is your dry chem and halon and combustible metal. Now your wet chemical is a cooling and smothering. Like I said, once it sits on top of the grease, keeps oxygen from coming into that grease and cools down the surface of that oil and reduces the off-gassing of the flammable material. So understanding how to utilize one of these, we need to understand a couple of acronyms. The first one is RACE, and that is rescue, alarm, contain, and extinguish. First, rescue. Set the alarm in the same place. You want to rescue yourself and anybody else that's willing to go. You want to set out an alarm for everybody. I have an unintended flame, and everybody needs to be aware of it. Once they're aware of it, they can make good decisions and have time. They have to have that time in order to escape or react. So the sooner you can set an alarm to let people know that one exists, the more options that you give them and more time to get out. Contain it if you have the capability, physically capable of being able to do that. You have the right extinguisher and you have the training in which to utilize that extinguisher, but you must have the fortitude. If you don't have good mental fortitude in order to engage an open flame, you better just get out, because there are chances that flames can actually overcome you if you don't know what you're doing and you get scared. So if you're scared to fight a fire, that's not a problem. That's a human natural instinct. Get out. But if you're trained to do it and you know the equipment and you understand its capabilities and the environment you're working in it, and you choose to do that, that's what fire extinguishers are for. Now, they're mainly for incipient fires. That means the initial start of that flame. Once it gets up and out of control, it starts to get into other areas of the room, you're dealing with a whole different environment. Extinguishers may not work, and understanding that is key. Fire extinguishers are for incipient and low, freshly made fires only. If you're trying to fight an engulfed environment with it, you better have special skills in order to do that. Lots of training, lots of practice. So make sure you understand that before you get to it. RACE. Again, rescue, alarm, contain, and extinguish. When you use a fire extinguisher, we want to use a terminology called PASS, P-A-S-S. And that's you want to pull the pin to take off the seal and to allow you to engage that ignition trigger. We also want to aim at the fire at the base. We don't want to put it at the fire flames themselves. Where are they coming from is where we want to aim at. And when we do that, we want to squeeze that initiator before we get into the fire area to attack it to make sure, one, it works and it's putting out the material that you need. In the next segment, I'm going to tell you how to take care of your fire extinguishers to make sure that they'll actually do that. Because unmaintained fire extinguishers will fail you. They will fail you. So we want to make sure that it happens. So you've got a good condition fire extinguisher. This first S is your squeeze the handle, make sure it works, and then go towards your fire. And when you do this, you want to be at a distance that you can actually administer the material onto the fire to be effective, but far enough away that you prevent yourself from actually becoming involved with that conflagration. So that last S is a sweep. What we want to do, pull a pin. We're going to aim at the base of the fire, squeeze that trigger, and we're going to sweep side to side. We want to go from left to right of the base of that flame's generation surface. And once we do that, we can actually knock it down. Once we've done that, stay there. Once the flames are gone, don't move. Watch that area because it could reflash on you. And if it flares back up, you're right there ready to go at it, boom, and hit it again. Don't dump all your extinguisher onto the flames to put it out. You just want to put enough to knock it out and then still have some in reserve in order to utilize that for a future reflash if that occurs. Again, all open flames in a construction environment should never be left alone for less than 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So once you extinguish that flame, somebody should be watching that area for at least another 30 minutes to make sure it does not reflash on you and you're prepared. So with that said, there's a lot of information that's gone down for fire extinguishers. You need to understand it's not simply, hey, I got a fire extinguisher, I'm good to go. You need to know how to apply it. Are you equipped with the right one to do the job that you've been assigned to? So be sure that you have that in the distances according to your storage and your usage requirements. And if you have any questions, as always, give us a call here at Ultimate. That's what we're here for, to help you do your job. So with that, remember, safety is not a mindset, state of mind. Thank you for listening.